Hi there. We're on.
Good to see you, Tim.
Yes, it's always a pleasure. So yes, I don't know if you're aware of my little intro there that my assistant pulled some feed from the last time we chatted, and you're in the intro every time we do an episode. So this is LNC Talks, and my name is Tim Kane, and I am here with one of the more successful people of the legal nurse consulting world, Pat Iyer, and she joins me today, and we're just going to have a little chit chat about what it's like to be an LNC and some other things that she has coming up that sound exciting. So how are things going today, Pat?
You know, they're going well, Tim. And I think about this as it's such an interesting profession for nurses because we have the opportunity to be detail-oriented, to be analytical, to use our teaching skills, to use our writing skills, and constantly learning about different aspects of medicine and the law. So I'm excited to say that I've been a legal nurse consultant since 1987 and never been bored in the field.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And I think what the reasons you just said is what makes nurses such a great addition to the legal aspect of brings the medical element to the legal aspect is all those we're constantly thinking, we're constantly attending education and very analytical, and that is a great thing for any medical legal case.
It sure is. You know, there are so many aspects of healthcare that make sense when you have a nursing background, but can be opaque to an attorney, particularly one who has no healthcare background. I first realized this when I was an expert witness for about 25 years. And in the beginning of my career, when I was deposed, the attorney looked at me in the deposition and said, "Is there any indication that the guardrails were up?" And I sat there and I thought about, oh, guardrails, yeah. Oh, side rails. To him, it was a perfectly logical question.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, exactly. No, that's a great point. I mean, what we do as second nature, the appearance to the outside world is not always is not the same.
Yes, for sure. I remember another question that was, well, what about this change of shift report? Can I get a copy of that? Well, no. It's totally verbal, and maybe in some places it was audio tape. Now it's walking rounds. There is no record of that. But for an attorney's mind, change of shift report sounds like a document.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. You would think it would and be entered and everything. It's nothing to do with the legal aspect, but it's funny you say that. A lot of hospitals I worked at as a travel nurse required shift report to be done by the oncoming nurse and the offgoing nurse at the patient's bedside, to kind of just, keep them in that loop, which is something similar.
Yes. And that is the ideal way to do it. I spent much of my nursing career sitting in a conference room, waiting my turn to find out about the patients that I was assigned to. And there is no hands-on observation or the ability to point to specific things if you're sitting in a room compared to standing next to the patient's bed.
And what I always liked is it included the patient to have some input during it, like, oh, but look, forgot something, wanted to say, for make the next 12 hours be easier.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Back to attorneys though, about education with nurses. It's funny. There's an attorney that I'm very familiar with. I sponsor Trial Lawyers Association. Long story short, well, impossible. But he says to me one day, he decides to ask, he's the main person in the Trial Lawyers Association. Can you get me medical experts, medical physicians to do my medical records review? And I said, no, I can get you nurses for that. He said, nurses can't do that because they're not the ones that will wind up testifying. And I said, very true, but let myself and the nurses in my organization review your case and your medical records, and we'll tell you if that case has any merit or not, and cost your firm a lot less, and than if that physician did it. And if it does have merit, then we'll go find the physician. So now I have them as a client. but that education that you would think that they would just know that they don't.
Yeah, I know that as time has gone on, attorneys are increasingly aware of the benefits of working with nurses. There's been a lot more education, a lot more people marketing. I did a podcast with an attorney, John Menney, on a Legal Nurse podcast that was broadcast last week. And he said that every day he's getting emails and letters in the mail, a lot of unsolicited marketing. Of course, there are still attorneys who have never worked with a nurse, even if they have received all that marketing, or feel that either they want to review the records or they think their paralegal can review the records, or they've got John who works in the emergency department next door who they can sit down with and say, hey, can you help me make sense of this? But it's a lot more economical to go to a nurse who can put all that information in perspective and read between the lines. Paralegals are well trained for certain aspects of the law, and sometimes they are doing chronologies, but they might miss something that we would see because we know how the healthcare system works, and we can go through those records a lot faster because we're not looking up abbreviations or medical terms. So I always get a little uncomfortable when an attorney says, oh, my paralegal can do it. I don't need to have a nurse. And I think, but we're two different professions and we have two different skill sets. And now let me tell you why a nurse could take you further on your case than your paralegal without denigrating the paralegal, which is tricky, to be very careful not to say anything that would imply a criticism of the paralegal skills. I wouldn't be able to write a brief. I wouldn't be able to do the legal research that the paralegal can, but I can sure decipher medical records to a higher level of competency.
That is an excellent point, because now with what you just said made me realize that over the years, I've replied to attorneys that talk about the paralegal like that. And not intentionally, I've probably criticized the paralegal because this is what, and now I'm going to rethink that, because my response would be is I'm going to analyze the medical records where your paralegal most likely will be copying and pasting, where I can do an analysis of it. I mean, that's not terrible, and give you an insight to that note where they're just putting it there for someone to review later. So that's a good point you made, though, to be careful not to shoot their paralegal in the foot, because I'm not going to appreciate that.
That's true. That's true. We're all part of the same team.
Exactly. Well, we're live right now, and if anybody wants to type in any questions, we would be happy to answer any questions and discuss them in depth if need be. So please feel at any time, anybody in the audience that would like to ask us a question. Pat, I'm going to go right to our next thing. I want to just ask you about, I have the link on the scroll on the bottom here. Why don't you tell us about your conference that I know occurs once, I think sometimes twice a year, that's coming up in February?
We've been doing online conferences since July of 2020. Barbara Levin and I have been quite experienced now, have gotten quite experienced in planning and organizing and putting on the conferences specifically for legal nurse consultants. We have a variety of speakers coming up in February who will be talking about specific memorable cases. I'll be sharing strategies on how to get your first case and on using presentation skills. When legal nurse consultants, with all of the knowledge that we have and our teaching skills, approach attorney groups, we find that attorneys love to find out about medical issues. So we'll be going through some specific points on how you get those speaking opportunities. And all of this is designed to be a virtual online conference, making it convenient for you to not have to pay the airfare and the food and the parking and the hotel that goes along with attending an in-person conference. The link for this is lnc.tips/February 2025 virtual.
That sounds spectacular. I want to say this. I've attended your conferences a few times, and I think the whole occupation and pool of legal nurse consultants can benefit from it, from the brand new nurse who's never even spoken to an attorney to the well-seasoned nurse who could benefit from some other ways to approach some projects that they're already working on, or a better approach to their business in the future. So I think no matter what kind of LNC may be considering your conference, anybody who attends will find it beneficial. I have to say that.
Thank you, Tim. And I know you've spoken at our conference and did a great job.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I do remember that. So, and it's fun too, because there's a lot of interaction with the other LNCs, and that's what I think can benefit the attendees as well, is just having to speak to the other nurse on the other side of the country and hear what they're doing, or what they may feel about certain avenues for it.
And we have a couple of workshops built into the conference where there will be hands-on work in breakout rooms with colleagues to help the attendee walk away from the conference with specific plans in place so that they know how to carry out the advice and suggestions that they obtain by attending the conference.
100%. Couldn't agree more. I see we have a question, and let me display it. I learned how to put it up there. Julie Bonner. I'm an RN certified case manager and very interested in learning more about LNC. Do you consider this a strong background? And also, is there a demand for case manager expert witnesses? Thank you for your time. I'll let you answer that, Pat.
Having a background as a certified case manager is a very helpful aspect of nursing, in the sense that you understand the process of the injury recovery. I would assume that as a case manager, you work a lot with people who have been injured through car crashes or other types of personal injury events, and that you are helping that person navigate through the system. I see this more as a behind the scenes role for you specifically, Julie. When you ask about, is there a demand for case manager expert witnesses, there is probably no demand or a low demand for having a liability expert when a case manager is involved. In other words, if a case manager is a defendant, there's a need to have an expert witness for the plaintiff and for the defense. In the 29 years that I ran my company full-time before I sold it, I never had an attorney come to me and say, I want to sue a case manager for how this individual affected the case. However, we had multiple cases where there were significant injuries where your background in deciphering medical records would be useful to create chronologies or medical summaries to point out the complications that happened to this person as a result of their injury. There is a role called the Rule 1006 expert fact witness. The Rule 1006 expert, and the term expert fact witness is more of a colloquial use, but the official legal name is Rule 1006. And that person is somebody who summarizes voluminous medical records to make it convenient for the court. You would be excellent in that role, and that is a testifying role. It's not a liability role in the sense that the expert fact witness or the Rule 1006 witness, and I'm using those two terms interchangeably, you're not saying that anyone deviated from the standard of care. Your opinions are not part of this case. Your skill in explaining to somebody what this person went through in the form of a written report is what the Rule 106 expert does. So that's something to consider if you're thinking of the expert witness piece. That's an avenue that you could pursue. I do offer a course for people who are interested in assuming this role. But in terms of liability expert work, not necessarily an avenue that's going to be fruitful for you. But think in terms of behind the scenes summarizing medical records, helping attorneys understand the injuries, complications, and then the expert fact witness or Rule 1006 emphasizes all the course of the treatment, plus the focus is on what is the pain, what is the suffering that this individual went through over the course of this injury. That's where you speak on behalf of the plaintiff. You're explaining the medical records to a judge and a jury, explaining the pain scales, explaining the complications, the symptoms, the treatments. You're acting as an educator.
Those are great words of encouragement. And I want to piggyback on a few things. I always believe any registered nurse has a role in the world of legal nurse consulting. But certified case managers, I always feel, and I've had them do some work for me, are very well rounded. We're all well rounded, but to a certain extent. But certified case managers, they see it all. If they're in the ER, they're dealing with the child who's going through a disease, to the placement of the 80-year-old who's had a hip fracture and heading to the nursing home. So my point is, I want to piggyback. I agree with what you actually taught me with what you instructed her about being an expert. But behind the scenes, a certified case manager in the LNC world is very useful and helpful for any law firm, in my experience. So,
great point, Julie. I hope that this has helped in terms of giving you a sense of direction.
Yes, I think it certainly will. Where else can we go? So your conference is in February. What you're writing a lot of books. Have you done a more recent book that has come out? The most recent.
The most recent book is Medical Record Analysis, a guide for attorneys by expert LNCs. And it's a compilation book, which means that of the 13 chapters were all written by different people. Some of them are part of my coaching programs. Some of them came into this project from the outside. We launched that book on December 11th, and it hit #1 bestseller status in 4 categories. And it's a very helpful book for both legal nurse consultants and attorneys, because every chapter looks at medical issues from a different perspective. We have chapters on toxicology and on mass torts and on the mechanisms of injury in car crashes, as well as the diagnostic tests that are required when a person is injured. There's a whole area of medical legal world where we intersect as legal nurse consultants with attorneys and enjoy each other's areas of expertise. So that book came out December 11th. I am finishing my next book on video marketing for legal nurse consultants, giving strategies step by step, how you create videos and launch them. And then the book after that will be on how legal nurse consultants can write short books to use them as marketing tools when they are working with attorneys. I've got some other ones lined up after that, but the other 2 are the video marketing and the short book are the closest to being finished.
2 things on that. Why I wanted to bring up the more recent book, and I believe I do have an order in just the other day for my own copy, is during the promotion, I noticed a lot of familiar names that are in my Facebook group that I'm the admin of. I think there's a lot of people that are in the Facebook group that are regular. They post info that are in that book, as a contributor, and I was thrilled to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And on your video marketing, I enjoyed something. Well, it wasn't necessarily video marketing. It was about a year ago. You had a fun little contest on starting from scratch for making your YouTube channel.
Yes.
And I participated in that because I have no idea how to do any of that stuff.
Yes.
That was a lot of fun, on tips, on your titles and everything.
There's so much of the world has gone to video. You can't escape it. You walk out of your house and you're surrounded by the video in the doctor's office or in the bus station or in the restaurant or in the bar. My husband and I were in Maryland last month, and we stopped at a little local restaurant in Maryland, and I counted 32 screens. It was a sports bar. Every single surface of the wall was covered with screens. Luckily, they had no sound playing because there was the Miami Dolphins on one screen and the Kansas City people on another screen and another team on another screen. My husband and I are not sports people. So we were sitting there going, oh, what do you think that KC stands for? Oh, maybe that's Kansas City. And it was overwhelming. There was no way that you could possibly eat your meal without being hooked into watching video. From a marketing perspective, legal nurse consultants are ideally positioned to teach attorneys through short informational videos demonstrating your knowledge, doing a YouTube short, which is now used to be up to 60 seconds. Now it's up to 3 minutes. And having a YouTube channel where you're producing information and little videos on a regular basis. They don't have to be heavily edited. You don't have to even bring in footage from other sources, although you can, and it's not difficult. It's a way to remind attorneys that you've got useful information to share with them. And since very few legal nurse consultants are doing it, it's a wide open field.
I bet. I mean, we like you said, we can't go anywhere without being involved into the aspect of the video world one way or another. I mean, I hate to talk about a murder, but that guy in Manhattan with the United Healthcare, I mean, we all had his picture, probably before while he was riding his bike trying to escape.
Yes.
Was out there. I mean,
yes.
Yeah. So yeah. About LNC Talks here. I enjoy doing these live podcasts and chatting with other nurses, but it has a marketing component to it. We all realize that. I mean, an attorney is going to see either one of us or any one of my guests, and it might strike a curiosity for them to reach out to us. So this is really, even though we're chatting and pleasantly and having informal conversation, it's a form of marketing.
It is. It sure is. And that's one of the joys of doing videos is that you have no idea who's watching, who will watch it in the future, who will share it, where it will go. It is truly a viral form of marketing. And it's a way that many people prefer. You and I, Tim, and many of the people watching grew up when books were something you held in the hand and your world came in through news, through newspapers, through books. It's completely flipped now. People are getting information through videos and they prefer it. So it's definitely a form of marketing for legal nurse consultants to consider for their own businesses.
I don't like to admit this, but we're talking about holding. Yes, remember the days where you had to hold a book open and read it. But I love anybody's book that's on Audible because I could throw it in the car. I could play it while I'm in the shop, taking care of things and
in the shower. I heard
in
that.
the shower, yeah. I mean, it's just saves so much time. But that's that technology world that is so changed since you and I were back in 1985. It wasn't there. So.
It is. And then, of course, there's podcasts that you can listen to while you're taking a walk, which is the favorite thing that I do. I'm either on the phone with somebody or listening to a podcast. So people in our development have gotten used to seeing me walk around and smiling because I'm listening to some podcast and something has amused me. Yeah. You never know whether people are talking or listening when they've got those white earbuds in and a phone somewhere on their body.
I was on your podcast about 2-3 years ago, and I had another nurse tell me that they listened to it while they were on the plane.
On the plane.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So, oh, we have a comment I can just throw up here real quick. Oh, Denise Harvey. Now, this is one of my constituents from the Minnesota area. Appreciate both your perspectives and guidance to all the folks in the LNC world. Thank you for both your time and dedication to dedication to the profession. Certainly, it is our pleasure. Any questions from you, Denise, or anybody else out there? I think we've been at this about 26 minutes. A few more minutes, we'd be happy to discuss anything more that anybody wonders about the LNC field. So I always put this, even though we're live now, this will be, it's funny with my private Facebook group, Facebook doesn't really let me broadcast live into it. It may be there now. It's on my business page. And then my assistant, usually when we go live, will copy and paste it and then can put it into the live group where it just won't let go directly into the group. But we're also broadcasting to my LinkedIn audience right now. And we're also on my YouTube channel right now at the same time. So,
Perfect.
Yeah. I mean, back to video marketing. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. When I first started this, the email marketing, I mean, yeah, it's spam and there's pros and cons. What back then was not such a problem now. I don't think cold emailing is the way to go anymore. I think you've got to get into the video world if you want to get into somebody's office, with your information. They could click off an email as fast as you put it into their box and they don't know who you are.
Yeah, that's a great point, Tim. It is much more appealing to somebody to get a video. You can use Loom video within an email, by the way, which dramatically increases the open rate by creating a video using loom.com, LOOM.com, and send a personalized message directly to that person. That's likely to be looked at compared to the mass emailing.
Yeah, we used to use the servers that you make one email and the server just sends it to 300 addresses if you give it to them, but there's no personal touch to that. Yeah.
That's true. I did a podcast earlier this month with Jeff Willis, who got his start as a physician medical legal consultant by looking up email addresses for attorneys. And he did it very systematically, state by state, and went on websites and found email addresses for attorneys. And he said it took a lot of volume of work. That maybe send out 150 emails, he might get one inquiry, but that one inquiry turns into a client. And then that client gives repeat business or makes referrals. So it is a high volume effort required. And you have to have a certain amount of luck that your email is structured in such a way that catches the attention of the attorney who has a need and recognizes that you're the solution. But there's far more effective ways that are less time consuming and quite honestly don't take that same psychological toll of being rejected and ignored, which we don't do well as nurses. We want people to like us. We want to please and help people. We've got that little piece right here in our sternum that I refer to as the hook. Oh, you've got a problem. Let me help you. So I recommend looking at video as a way to reach a lot more people in a much more cost-effective way.
100%. And if they attend that conference in February, I think more ideas in that reference will be discussed and you can learn more about the marketing aspect of being an LNC.
Yes, we can devote a lot of time to that.
Yes. Yeah, I remember that over the years. LNC tips /February 25 virtual. Oh, yeah, I got it. Oh, hey. Oh, this is what I wanted to bring up to you, Pat. And Molly told me it was okay. The reason why I'm able to be here today is because I had an independent medical exam that conflicted with it in Rochester. And I didn't feel like driving the hour, but I would have. And you referred me to Molly Arnold, who lives in Rochester, and she attended that exam for me today.
Oh, fabulous.
Or she's going to. It's at 2:00, so she's not quite there yet.
Yeah. All right.
Yes. So
congratulations, Molly. That's exciting.
Yes. And I appreciate you linking us together, because I'm always, I don't want to say I'm always looking for people, but I'm always open to it, because my subs come and go, and sometimes my schedule gets overwhelming, and it's just nice to have people out there I can reach out to. And Molly was more than happy to pick it up for me. So her comment: YouTube's algorithm randomly introduced me to the LNC role several years ago. I never heard of it before. I can't believe you didn't hear of it before. Back in like 2008, 2010, my U.S. mail inbox used to get inundated with things, telling me. That's how I first heard about it, was that way.
And there's another question from Julie.
Yep, let's do that. One other question. After studying LNC and feeling ready to work, do you recommend subcontracting as a good first step, or just taking the plunge working with clients? Pat, you're the authority on that.
Yes, I did write a book on LNC subcontracting, by the way. It is, it's fair to say that both roles are viable ways to get started. When you are a subcontractor, somebody is overseeing your work, giving you some training, proofreading your work product, helping to direct what you should be putting together. And that's very comforting, and that's very helpful. The trade-off is that you get a much smaller amount per hour than you would if you were working directly with the attorney. So many people start that way with subcontracting. There is one type of subcontracting that I do want to bring up that is a way to get experience and seems appealing, but has a trap in it. And that is when you are responding to an advertisement for nurses to review cases involving defective products or drugs. You could be paid very, very little, and a lot of your time is tied up with that company. They might want 20 or 30 hours of work and pay you the least amount that they possibly could, in some cases less than you would make as a staff nurse in a hospital. And those projects can give you experience in extracting records and teach you the skills that you need to go onto online platforms and download medical records or review them online and produce a work product. After a while, it becomes repetitive and boring, because it's the same kind of case over and over and over again. And it can end just like that, like on a Friday afternoon. One of my colleagues told me that, and she ran a company supplying legal nurse consultants to do those types of cases. She got 3 calls that canceled all 3 contracts that she was working on because the case is settled. The judges make a decision. We're going to pay $17 billion. And depending upon the case, that may not be an exaggeration. And all these cases are going to disappear. So if that's your source of income and you haven't been marketing to attorneys, then you're in trouble. So I caution you to think about the pros and cons. If somebody says, oh, I could give you, 30 or 40 hours worth of cases a week, and I'll pay you $50 an hour, and I'm pulling a number out of the air. That's high for some of the agencies. Some charge or pay even less than that. But when you're working directly with an attorney, you're getting feedback from the attorney. You are using your skills. You're charging a higher rate, but you don't have that person in the background saying, hey, perhaps you could revise your report and take this focus instead. You're learning as you're doing. And that's a little unnerving. If you work with a business coach or you work with colleagues who are going to be able to help you with that and give you feedback, if you get in with a group of more experienced LNCs, they can help you with knowing that you're doing it right. I do business coaching, by the way, as I've mentioned. And I find that a lot of what we can do as nurses to help attorneys is almost instinctive. We are good listeners. We sit down with a client when you get your first case and say, now, what specifically are you looking for from me? What will make this report successful in your terms? What do you want me to pull out of the records? And it's fine to ask those questions rather than making an assumption that you know what the attorney wants, or doing the case and then finding out the attorney says, but I didn't want you to concentrate on that period of time. I wanted you to concentrate on this period. Having a clear understanding in the beginning when you're working directly with attorneys helps you become successful.
A practice I did when I would do a lot of like records review or chronologies is the attorney would talk to me over the phone and tell me what he wants. And I always said, please email me everything you said that were your objectives and what you want me to concentrate on, because I have that to review. But at the same time, 2 months later, when all of a sudden he changed his mind and decided to, I thought I wanted something else, I just say, well, here's what you asked me to concentrate on. And then, there's the proof. But I get that question a lot too, is should I just subcontract or should I try to get my own clients? My response to that is try and do both. Yes, you should subcontract, but don't take trying to get your own clients off the radar or off the burner, because then you can also, at any point in time, you can wind up with nothing, like you said. So
yeah. And that's a really great point, Tim. And it probably doesn't need to be said, but I will say it anyway, is that the one thing that you have to be extremely careful of as a subcontractor is never, ever, ever market yourself behind the back of the person who brought you into that relationship with the attorney and say, hey, you don't have to go through Tim for your next case. You can come directly to me. Highly unethical. Word travels in the industry. You do not want to do that. And I'm bringing it up because I know of some people who have, and it's very unpleasant when they do that. It creates a big mess. So be conscious. You can't cross the line and market to people that your agency above you has introduced you to.
I have that. I hate having that conversation, but I having new business prospects recently, and anytime I deal with an LNC, I make it quick. I'm like, just so you know, you and I are now in agreement that you're not going to market to this attorney behind my back and circumvent me. And if you do, I don't know what I say. I say a few things, but it's I don't like doing that, but I feel like I have to just to everyone who contracts with me.
Yeah, I have it in my agreement that people sign, and I reiterate it when I have that.
That's what I mean. I don't like doing that at all. And I think the ones I talked to, I have a good feeling about, because of that reason. They know I get the feeling from them that they know if they did something like that, they're going to get a bad name, and they don't want that. Yeah, they don't want that at all.
Yeah, and nurses are ethical, honest people. That's the way that we're bred. So when a situation pops up like this, it's an abnormality. It's unusual. It draws attention because we don't expect our colleagues to work with us in that way. We trust them. We bring them into our company to help us by furthering our reach as legal nurse consultants. When taking the position of Tim and I, when we are subcontracting cases to people, we're doing it because we have more work than we can handle, or it's work that is in a different area of nursing. And we need the expertise of an LNC with that background.
But we've all heard
part of the team.
That it's occurred, but not a lot. I would say the occurrences are way less than the ones who don't, obviously.
Way less. Yes.
Yes. So, well, all right. We've been chit-chatting here for 40 minutes. See, it goes by so fast. One thing I just wanted to bring up more to you and to the audience, though. I mean, and everybody for the most part knows this, that a good majority of my business is in the world of the independent medical exam, defense medical exam, observation as a witness for personal injury attorneys and their clients, and going into the doctor's office with them. What I want to say, and this is just separate to Pat's conference in February, I highly recommend. I also have a training course that just really it sticks to the IME DME portion of the LNC world, and I was just going to put that up. If anybody's interested, they can go to medicallegalconnection.com/training. But this is just a very small percentage point if you're interested in the IME DME world, compared to if the Pat's conference in February will give you the broad spectrum of the whole LNC aspect of being a legal nurse consultant. So that's all I wanted to hit out there. My email address is always timkane@medicallegalconnection.com. Anybody's more than welcome to get a hold of me. Do you want me to put a contact info for you, Pat? I could do it real quick.
Sure. The easiest way is my name, Patricia Iyer @gmail.com.
This typing is so small, so I apologize if it is not there. I think I got it. Oh, I think I misspelled.
No, you have it
No.
correctly. Just
Okay.
remember that the I is a capital I, as in India.
I need to wear my glasses more, get that bigger font.
You are fine. You got it correctly. This is one of the challenges, that the capital I looks like the L in Gmail. So I have been called Pat Iyer.
Yes.
And that's really unpleasant when you go into the courtroom and they say, could you raise your right hand and swear to tell the truth? That's why the bailiff always says, for those of you who testify, could you please tell the jury your first and last name and spell it? And they give you a chance to get Patricia Iyer, Iyer, in before anybody can say Pat Iyer.
It's funny you say that. I just wanted to add to that point real quick. A lot of new LNCs, and I did this, you create an email address. I used to be timlnc@gmail.com. And how much email I lost because a lot of firms thought it was an I, and I, that L can get mistaken so much,
Right.
I would get even phone calls from a law firm saying, we wanted to email you, but you never responded back, or it keeps bouncing back. It's Tim Inc., right? I'm like, oh no.
Oh, wow.
So I kind of got rid of that. I mean, it's my backup email, but any email I send now to attorneys is always through timkane@medicallegalconnection.com.
Yes. Yes. An important consideration.
Yeah. I mean, it's so minor, but at the same time, it can come back and shoot you in the foot. You don't intend it to. Well, all right. We've been at this 45 minutes. This has been nice. Thank you, Pat, for joining me. And
thank you. It's been a pleasure talking with everybody, and hope everybody enjoys a wonderful holiday season.
Yes. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and happy holidays. And we're going to cut this off. There we go.